We of the Galactic Council pride ourselves on discernment. Across millennia, we have judged, weighed, and cataloged species, deciding which deserve cultivation and which are fit only for containment. In this hierarchy, humanity was filed under primitive bipeds, amusing but irrelevant. Their kind entertains itself with glowing screens, consumes its own health in greasy slabs of meat, and argues endlessly about which side of a flat disk of bread ought to face upward. Such a species cannot be dangerous. At least, that is what we believed. My assignment was straightforward: observe, assess, and, if necessary, acquire leverage. The human diplomat stationed in our trade negotiation halls had grown uncooperative, stubborn about tariffs on resources they barely understood. The solution proposed by my superiors was elegant: secure his offspring, hold him until compliance followed. We had done this countless times before. The threat of loss is universally persuasive. Humans, with their strange obsession for familial attachment, would crumble even faster than most. Our scouts tracked the target to a forest. The boy, though he was in truth no child, rather a male in his mid-30s by Earth measure, had separated from the larger clusters of human habitation. He was alone, beneath primitive cloth stretched on poles, beside a pit of extinguished fire. He stared up at the stars, unguarded. I recorded my observations with professional satisfaction. Subject exhibits no awareness of surveillance. Species remains complacent even when isolated. We descended cloaked. He did not flinch. Some prey sense predators even unseen, but this one did not startle, did not flee. Only when our paralysis beam touched him did he stiffen. I expected screams. Instead, he whispered something so softly our translators strained to capture it. Ever hear of Chuck Norris? The name carried no meaning in our archives. Perhaps a minor deity. Perhaps nonsense. I dismissed it as human irony, that peculiar reflex of laughing at one's own demise. The tractor field lifted him easily. His body was steady, breath controlled, heart rate elevated but not erratic. When specimens collapse into unconsciousness, their limbs dangle. This one remained oddly aligned, like a soldier at rest. I noted the anomaly, but did not dwell on it. Pride cautioned me against overthinking. Back aboard the vessel, technicians examined him. 2 eyes, 2 lungs, 1 brain, redundant biology, inefficient design. Our medic scoffed openly. Their species is defined by accidents. Every feature looks borrowed from something else. I joined in the laughter, though inwardly I remained unsettled. I replayed his whisper, the cadence carrying amusement rather than fear. When placed in stasis, he remained calm, his features composed, lips almost curved. It resembled patience, not paralysis. My subordinates celebrated the success of our mission prematurely. They spoke of commendations, of how the council would reward us for such swift execution. I should have joined them fully, yet I found myself staring at the human's still form, feeling as though he were less our captive than our guest. Reports filed smoothly. Human male secured. Estimated 35 cycles. Captured without resistance. Threat minimal. I wrote those words and believed them enough to convince any superior. Yet beneath, in my private log, I allowed a single note of unease. Subject exhibits calm, unusual for species baseline. Recommend further observation. The journey back to orbit was uneventful, though every glance at the stasis chamber tightened something in my chest. He lay there, neither restless nor inert. I imagined he was listening, memorizing the hum of our engines, the rhythm of our steps, the pattern of our speech. Absurd, I told myself. He was unconscious. He was harmless. And yet the absurdity refused to leave. During briefing, one lieutenant jested, "Perhaps this one is their Florida man." The crew erupted with laughter. I smiled with them, but did not miss the irony. We had cataloged thousands of human cultural anomalies, and Florida man remained the most inexplicable. One article told of a man who wrestled reptiles barehanded. Another of theft involving an inflatable pool toy. At first we thought such incidents statistical outliers. But what if they were indicators? If such chaos was not failure but camouflage, I shook the thought away. Superstition had no place in reports. Yet arrogance, too, can blind. We initiated the awakening sequence. My officers gathered around the observation bay, eager to watch the human panic. I had witnessed countless subjects' reactions. The sudden terror, the desperate bargaining, the inevitable collapse. This would be no different. And yet, as the stasis field dissolved, his eyelids fluttered open. No scream, no confusion, only a slow, deliberate breath. He raised his head slightly, eyes moving across the chamber, not as prey seeking escape, but as a strategist surveying a battlefield. His lips curled faintly, almost amused. The chamber filled with silence. One technician muttered that the sedation levels had been miscalculated. Another whispered that perhaps the beam had induced euphoria rather than paralysis. I ignored them all. My gaze remained locked on his. In that instant, I realized the central conflict of my mission was not between the Council and the human envoy. It was between our certainty and his composure. He was not afraid. He was not even surprised. He was waiting. I felt it then, though I would not admit it aloud. The shift, the balance tilting, my arrogance cracking like brittle glass. The story we thought we were telling, powerful conquerors humbling primitives, was no longer ours alone. This human, silent and smiling, had become the author of his own narrative, and I feared we were already characters within it. The awakening sequence should have been routine. We had performed it dozens of times on various species. Flick a switch, adjust neural dampeners, wait for eyelids to flutter, then enjoy the predictable shrieking or bargaining that followed. Yet when this human's eyes opened, he did not scream. He smiled. It was not the broad grin of amusement, nor the trembling grin of hysteria. It was measured, almost polite, as though acknowledging an old acquaintance. We in the observation bay exchanged glances. One of my subordinates whispered that perhaps the paralysis beam had malfunctioned, leaving traces of euphoria in his system. I considered reprimanding such speculation, but my own antennae twitched with unease. The human blinked slowly, surveying the chamber, his gaze pausing at each panel, each vent, each corner camera. He did not stare at us, the obvious observers. He mapped the room. Then, in flawless galactic common, he spoke. Well, that was a hell of a commute. The translator hesitated before outputting his words. Our linguistic algorithms, which had devoured thousands of Earth languages, stuttered at his phrasing. Commute? A term associated with routine travel, as if our abduction were no more than traffic congestion. His tone was light, conversational. No trembling, no fear. I stepped forward, maintaining my composure. You are aboard a council vessel. You will remain calm and answer questions. He tilted his head, eyes flickering across the reflection of my insignia. Commander, I assume? I stiffened. My rank was not marked in any recognizable human symbols, yet he identified it instantly. His smile widened a fraction. You carry yourself like middle management. My subordinates bristled, but I raised a hand. Best not to show agitation. You are mistaken. You will answer what we ask. He leaned back against the chair, perfectly relaxed. Sure, ask away. But first, a tip. You might want to fix the coolant leak in your starboard reactor. I could smell it halfway through your atmospheric exit. The room fell silent. My crew looked at one another, silently asking if he was bluffing. Only engineers knew about the starboard issue, and even then, the data was sealed within encrypted files. I waved them down. Coincidence. Humans possess keen olfaction. Nothing more. But my certainty had thinned. We began the standard interrogation. Name, age, occupation. He answered smoothly, even helpfully. He gave his name, his Earth Standard years, 35, and a profession, security consultancy. He elaborated that he was tasked with probing vulnerabilities in systems, identifying weaknesses before adversaries could exploit them. His phrasing was maddeningly vague, yet his confidence radiated. When asked about his family, he shrugged. Dad does diplomacy. Talked a lot. Wave his hands. Mom gardens. You already know that, or you wouldn't be wasting your time with me. His composure grated against protocol. We expected resistance, but resistance of the emotional sort: panic, denial, anger. Instead, he offered calm, pointed analysis. It felt as though he were interrogating us. "Your ship's AI is voice responsive, isn't it?" he asked suddenly. "And it monitors crew vitals in real time? You might want to tell it to stop flashing your heart rates on that panel, because it's giving away who's nervous." My gaze snapped to the panel. Indeed, the biometric feed was visible, a standard tool for supervisors. Yet he should not have been able to read our display language. And still, his eyes flicked across it with unnerving certainty. One of my lieutenants barked, "Silence." The human smirked. "Touchy. Don't worry, Lieutenant. I'm not here to hurt you." Well, not directly. His words carried the cadence of threat, though his tone remained casual. I forced myself to interject, to control the exchange. "You seem remarkably at ease for a captive." He chuckled. "Captive? That's one way to put it. I've been awake since the forest, you know. Paralysis never fully kicked in. I watched the light sequences on your consoles during the flight. Neat system. You guys should really cover those reflections better. Makes pattern recognition too easy." My breath caught. He had been awake? He had memorized console patterns for mere reflections? Impossible, or at least it should have been. Another officer muttered that the human was bluffing. The human leaned forward, voice low. "I'm not bluffing. And by the way, your ship's jump drive runs on trifold harmonic resonance, doesn't it? I could hear the frequency shift when we left the atmosphere. Lovely engineering, but a little noisy." We froze. That knowledge was classified, even within Council Engineering Corps. He could not have deduced it, unless he had. Unless every detail we dismissed as coincidence was, in fact, deliberate calculation. I reminded myself of discipline. "Your observations are irrelevant. You have no power here." He shrugged again. "Maybe, maybe not. Depends on how fast your technicians fix their encryption." "Explain," I demanded. He leaned back, eyes half-lidded as though enjoying a private joke. "Let's just say, I've already sent a message." The words were delivered so casually that my subordinates dismissed them as empty bravado. But I felt the weight settle in my chest. A message? Through what medium? He had no device, no transmitter. Yet he said it with such calm certainty that doubt began to claw at me. One of the younger analysts whispered, "He's lying. Humans exaggerate. It is their nature." I wanted to agree. I wanted to cling to the old arrogance. But the memory of his whisper before stasis, Chuck Norris, returned unbidden. It had been meaningless then, but now I suspected it was another thread of the same tapestry. Words chosen not to confuse, but to signal. We continued our questioning, though my voice felt brittle. He answered each query with a blend of honesty and mischief. He referenced films, comparing our chamber to something called a Bond villain lair. He quipped about duct tape, insisting it could fix anything, even starships. My officers recorded the words, baffled. I recognized only that each phrase carried intent beyond its surface. When the session ended, he leaned forward and whispered just loud enough for the recorder. "You should really lock down your auxiliary channels. Someone could piggyback on the scanning beam if they knew what they were doing." I dismissed him sharply, ordering sedation. But when I returned to my quarters, I could not rest. His calm smile lingered in my mind. His knowledge of our systems gnawed at my certainty. I told myself he was clever but powerless. A curious specimen, nothing more. Yet as I reviewed the footage of the session, I noticed something I had not before. His gaze, steady and unblinking, always drifting toward the cameras, as though he knew exactly where our eyes were. The official report I drafted described him as manageable, cooperative, of limited threat. But in the private notes of my log, I wrote something different. This human is not reacting to captivity. He is conducting reconnaissance. He has already begun. And as I sealed the entry, the lights in my chamber flickered. Just once, just briefly. I told myself it was nothing, but I did not believe it. The testing chamber was designed to strip subjects of pretense. Lightless walls, featureless surfaces, no stimuli beyond the pulse of the scanner beam. Even the most stubborn captives placed beneath the scanning arch eventually betrayed themselves, flinching, twitching, gasping when their hidden memories surfaced in bursts of projected imagery. We had extracted state secrets from warlords, genetic codes from bioengineered assassins, even the private horrors of tyrants who swore they had none. The chamber never failed, until the human entered. He walked in under guard, hands unbound, posture unervingly casual. His eyes swept across the instruments as though greeting old acquaintances. When the arch activated, its harmonic hum filling the air, he leaned his head slightly, as if listening to music. My subordinates exchanged uneasy glances. The beam should have frozen his thoughts, peeled them into readable patterns. Instead, the monitor filled with static. At first, we suspected interference. The technician recalibrated, shifting through frequencies. The static shifted, not clearing but rearranging. It began to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. Then, without warning, images appeared. Not as memories, ours. A distorted replay of our boarding protocols, our language drills, even fragments of council indoctrination rituals. The human smirked. "Neat trick," he said softly. "You point the beam at me, but it bounces back, like shouting in a canyon." The technician paled, fumbling with controls. He muttered that such feedback was impossible. The human chuckled. "Impossible's just the word you use before duct tape. I ground my mandibles. Explain yourself." He tilted his head, unfazed by the beam that should have rendered him pliant. "You built your scanner to read patterns. But patterns can be mirrored, redirected. You wanted my secrets. Instead, you just showed me yours." One of my officers slammed a fist against the console. "Lies." But the screen betrayed us. Flashes of our own archives, cycling in real time. Our military formations, our command hierarchies, our blind spots. Every attempt to shut down the beam failed. He was inside it somehow, guiding its output. I forced authority into my tone. "You are nothing more than a human. You cannot control council technology." He smiled again, that maddening half-smile. "You keep calling me human like it's an insult. But I'll let you in on a secret. My job back home, breaking into systems. Digital, physical, behavioral. If someone builds a lock, I figure out how to open it. You know what they called me in the service? The ghost auditor. I should have dismissed this as boasting. Yet my chest constricted with the weight of belief. He radiated conviction, not desperation. He was not trying to convince us. He was letting us catch up. The technician stammered that his brain scans were not aligning with any known neural architecture. Our models mapped complexity through branching fractals, predictable networks. His brain lit up like overlapping storms, chaotic yet efficient, leaping across pathways with no hesitation. He was not being overwhelmed by the scanner. He was navigating it. While I demanded clarification, the technician whispered, "It's as though he sees us before we see him." The human laughed quietly. "Now you're catching on." I snapped at the guards to restrain him. They moved forward, but the doors sealed themselves with a hiss. Our own system locked us out. Warnings scrolled across the displays in our own script, yet the cadence of the words felt foreign, like an echo of human sarcasm. "Access denied. Try again, sweetheart." The guards recoiled. The human merely shrugged. "Don't blame your AI. It's just doing what I ask." I barked orders, furious, demanding override codes. Every attempt returned mockery. One screen blinked with a line none of us understood. "Press F to pay respects." The human chuckled at our confusion. "Classic," he muttered. My arrogance, my training, demanded composure. I addressed him evenly. "You cannot win. Even if you disrupt one ship, the Council will erase your world." He leaned forward, voice quiet but sharp. "You think Earth doesn't know you're out here? You think we didn't notice your probes? We saw you the first time you peeked through the clouds. We just pretended not to." The room chilled. I whispered, "Pretended?" "Camouflage," he said simply. "You know, like Florida Man. You see the chaos, the stupidity, the nonsense headlines, and you laugh. You underestimate." That was the point. One of my lieutenants hissed that he was bluffing, but his eyes never wavered. He listed details no outsider should know. Coordinates of cloaked satellites orbiting beyond Earth's moon, ground-based sensors buried beneath oceans, deep space monitors hidden in asteroid belts. He recited them like grocery lists, calm and exact. You wanted to study a primitive planet, he continued. But Earth's been studying you. Every ship's signature, every warp trail, every mistake you thought invisible. We didn't show our teeth because you weren't worth a bite. Until now, my officers whispered among themselves, panic slipping through discipline. I slammed my claw against the console, demanding silence, but my own voice trembled. He saw it. Of course he did. He smiled again, but now it carried no humor. You still don't get it. You didn't capture me. I let you. Someone had to walk in and test your doors from the inside. The technicians scrambled at their stations, reporting power fluctuations. The ship's internal grid dimmed, then surged as though breathing. The AI repeated phrases and corrupted voices, fragments of human language spliced into council commands. It no longer sounded like ours. It sounded like his. I tried to reassure myself. You are one man. Earth cannot face the council. He looked directly at me, gaze unblinking. I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to show you what you don't understand. And trust me, Commander, what you don't know will kill you faster than anything I could do. The chamber lights flickered again, longer this time. Systems across the ship reported errors, cascading like dominoes. One console displayed a single phrase before going dark. They heard me. The guards shouted, trying to force the doors, but they remained sealed. The humans sat back, utterly composed, as though this were all expected. Relax, he said lightly. We're not at the panic stage yet. My mind raced. He was no longer merely a prisoner. He was a contagion, infecting everything we thought secure. And yet, he never raised his voice, never broke his calm. His power was not in weapons or violence, but in certainty that the ground beneath us was already his. As we finally cut power to the chamber, plunging it into darkness, I clung to one desperate hope, that isolation would sever his reach. But even in the dark, I could see the faint glint of his smile. And then, from somewhere deep within the ship, an alarm wailed, a tone I had never heard before. Not a council alarm, a human one. The alarm was alien to us not because of its pitch, but because of its familiarity to him. A shrill, insistent wail, accompanied by a staccato rhythm that grated on our senses, yet the human tapped his fingers along with it, perfectly in sync. He even mouthed something silently, words our translators could not catch, but which he clearly knew by heart. For us, the noise meant intrusion. For him, it meant memory. He looked at home. The ship shuddered. Power conduits blinked erratically. Emergency shutters slid open and closed with confused authority. My crew scrambled, issuing override commands, only to be met with mockery in our own language. Access revoked. Try again, hotshot, a phrase none of our codexes contained. The humans sat cross-legged in the chamber, utterly calm, as though watching a child's prank unfold. I barked orders, my voice breaking through the chaos. Seal secondary systems. Isolate navigation. The technicians obeyed, but their consoles sputtered and died. One screen burst into static before resolving in a text not of our making. Press any key to continue. Another displayed a crude image of a smiling human face, distorted, laughing silently. My officers recoiled as though the screen itself were haunted. The human sighed. You guys really didn't sandbox your AI? That's just sloppy. I whirled on him. What have you done? Nothing you didn't invite, he replied. You pointed a scanner at me, Commander. You thought you'd strip me down a code. Instead, you gave me a map. My mandibles clenched. You cannot outwit the council. You are one man. He met my gaze steadily. One man who already sent the message. A fresh wave of panic spread through the crew. They whispered about cloaked satellites, about human defenses hidden beneath oceans and asteroids, about the possibility, unthinkable days ago, that Earth had always been watching. I tried to silence them, but doubt had already infected the room like a contagion. The ship's AI announced, in a voice now disturbingly tinged with human cadence, lockdown engaged. Doors sealed, dividing us from half our own personnel. Internal cameras blinked off one by one, replaced with static or bizarre Earth symbols, smiling yellow circles, hand gestures, even a crude drawing of what one technician insisted was a cat. He smirked at our confusion. Yeah, that's a meme. Don't worry, you're not supposed to get it. I demanded to know his objective. Was this sabotage? War declaration? Negotiation? He shook his head. No, Commander. This isn't about war. This is about perception. You thought Earth was weak. You thought the Council held all the cards. Now you're realizing we've been counting yours all along. The ship trembled violently, lights flickering until only emergency glow remained. Reports flooded in from the few functioning comms. Engines stalled, weapons offline, life support cycling erratically. Somewhere deep within, coolant burst free, misting corridors with toxic fog. My soldiers coughed, stumbled, lost formation. And still he sat there, breathing steadily, no fear in his eyes. One officer screamed, "He's controlling everything. Kill him." I raised a hand, though my own instinct screamed the same. Killing him would solve nothing. He was not pulling strings with muscle. He was dismantling us with knowledge, with preparation. Eliminating him would not stop the message he claimed already sent. The chamber doors finally opened, not to our command, but to his. The AI projected text across the threshold. "Follow me." My crew hesitated, staring at the words as if they were prophecy. He stood slowly, adjusting his posture, brushing invisible dust from his suit. It was an ordinary garment, black fabric unadorned. Yet in that moment it appeared ceremonial, an executioner's robe. He walked past us, unhurried, and we, armed, trained, superior, did not stop him. I trailed at a distance, my pride cracking with every step. He moved through the ship as though he owned it, each bulkhead opening at his approach, each defense system falling silent. He did not need weapons. The vessel itself obeyed him. At the central nexus, he paused before the primary interface. My engineers wailed protests, shouting about encryption, but the screen yielded instantly to his touch. Symbols spilled across it. Council runes intertwined with Earth characters, merging into something neither wholly ours nor theirs. He glanced back at me. "You really should have checked your back doors. It's amazing what you can piggyback on if you're patient. Explain what you want." I demanded, though the words sounded hollow. He exhaled softly. "What I want you to understand. Earth doesn't need your counsel. We don't need your protection, your trade, your oversight. We let you think we did. That's over now." His fingers moved across the panel. The ship's external displays shifted, projecting our coordinates into open space. Distress signals burst outward, not ours but his. Human-coded, prearranged. My crew shrieked. "He's calling them here." He shook his head. "Not calling. Confirming. They already knew. I'm just lighting the path." The silence that followed was heavier than any explosion. For the first time, I believed him entirely. Earth had always known. Earth had prepared. Earth had played primitive for centuries while watching us laugh at their chaos. The realization hollowed me out. The ship groaned, hull plates vibrating. Emergency systems cycled futilely, fighting commands that no longer belonged to us. The AI's voice echoed through every corridor, repeating one phrase in both our tongue and his. System reboot initiated. The human turned, meeting my gaze one final time. "Don't worry, Commander. This isn't the end for you, but it is the end of your certainty." And then he walked away, not fleeing, not rushing, simply walking, as though disembarking at a station long planned. We tried to follow, but the ship fractured into compartments, bulkheads sealing behind him. I saw him vanish into a corridor bathed in dim red light, his silhouette framed against chaos, steady as stone. Then the doors closed. We were left scrambling in the dark, our pride shattered, our systems alien to us. Every attempt to regain control met with failure, every override greeted by laughter in text or mocking human phrases. One final message appeared before the screens, all died. "Thanks for playing." In that silence, I understood the truth. We had not captured a diplomat's son. We had not taken a hostage. We had invited a phantom into our sanctum, a man whose calm was sharper than any blade. We thought him prey. He revealed us as fools. And as the hull moaned under stresses we could not trace, I admitted, if only to myself, that I was afraid. Afraid of him, afraid of Earth, afraid of what lay beneath the mask of chaos they wore so convincingly. We thought Florida Man was the outlier. Now I realized he was the prototype. We thought Chuck Norris was nonsense. Now I feared he was legend. We thought duct tape was a joke. Now I wondered if it was prophecy. And in that moment of despair, I, an officer of the council, conceded the final truth. We had not abducted a human. We had awakened something older, darker, and infinitely patient. We thought him death in a suit, but even death would envy him.